Welcome back to the Elevate Your Best podcast. This is Michael Danclaus of Elevate Your Best.
And this is Bruno Martins from the Cyber Journey. Hello, guys.
So today we're talking about tools of visualization. So first off, I want to start talking about why visualization is so important. So we really want to dig into this from a tools perspective, because my background is finding the right tools for the right job. But before we can even get there, we got to talk about why. So what has visualization for you, Bruno, helped you create something in your life?
Michael, I believe that visualization is like a superpower that we humans have, like it's imagination. And that I see there are two major superpowers that we have: imagination and communication. And that is something called the cognitive trade-off hypothesis, which is something which is an hypothesis that tells that it's not an ordinary thing that we can visualize the past and visualize the future and communicate about this. It was a big trade that we did, evolutionary speaking, when we distanced ourselves in our common ancestors with the other primates, the other great apes. What makes us humans, essentially, is this trade-off: being able to visualize the past with clarity, being able to visualize the future with clarity, and knowing how to communicate with other people in order to gather resources to make a vision true. So I don't want to go too deep monologuing about this, but I believe that it expresses how I believe this ability to visualize the future, to project something forward in time, is important and key to us as humans. It defines.
Well, thank you very much for defining visualization, but you didn't answer my question, which
And
was, what is something in your life that you've created from visualization?
yeah, I thought that you asked that, why is important. Something in my life that I created through visualization. I mentioned that I learned English. It's not something tangible, but I visualize that happening, and so we did. I
What,
also, yeah.
what benefit did you being able to learn English give you?
Oh, the doors that it opened are incredible. And many things that I learned because of English. If I didn't knew how to speak English, I would not know a fraction of the things that I know today, the knowledge that I have. Actually looking, searching, curating information is an ability. If you develop the ability to find the information that is really necessary to what you wish to accomplish, you can learn anything today in the world of today. You can learn anything and you can execute much more than you want. And English opened the door for that. Like, the main thing is information. It changed quite significantly the access I have to information.
Got it. I wanted to touch on that is, let's make it tangible for people, like what visualization, what the reward is. And then we can go deep in on how does that tangibly show up. So
do you have examples like that, like tangible things that visualizing allowed you to manifest in your life?
absolutely. So for me, one of the things that I did create because I visualized it was I wanted to be around more people. I wanted to be connected with some of the people that I'd talked to tangibly or tangentially. And now I want to spend more time with them, not in the construct of that we already built. So one of the things that my fiance and I created was a monthly game night, because I set and visualized what that would look like. So now we've had anywhere from 5 to 20 people over at my house, so we can actually socialize, so we can get together, so we can celebrate, so we can enjoy time. And the reason why that was important, because I am a social person. I like actually being amongst people and having deep conversations, sometimes even not so deep conversations, but that kind of connection with people is really important to me. It is that quality time of the 5 love languages that is my second. It's my second important way that I share and communicate with care, compassion, and love, is quality time. So we created that together because I visualized what it looked like and why I wanted it.
Interesting. And you know what calls my attention in what you say, Michael? It's because sometimes we treat those changes in life visualization like, oh, I want this big house, I want that car, I want to go to the Bahamas or Bora, things like that. Get to know Paris, anything like that. And those are hard things to accomplish, depending on who you are, where you are in life. Those are hard things to accomplish. But we usually associate visualization with those hard goals. But see how easy it was for you. You visualize a game night. I know that John and Missy Butcher from the Lifebook Online, they have a Wednesday night where they date, and it's every Wednesday. They go out on a date, they leave the kids, and they have a lot of kids, and they leave the kids with somebody, and they have this program. It is impressive how we can design and architecture our lives so it is impressive, so it is amazing, it is fulfilling, it is like this enjoyable experience, and we usually don't do that for lack of even the 4 pillars of your practice. Preparing to do so, like committing, being accountable, and celebrating the fact that you can do that, just made that connection. Sorry, you were about to say something.
No, that's quite all right. So it absolutely is. I've seen this time and time again, where that being able to visualize where you want to go leads you to taking the steps in order to get there. When you can actually feel, think, taste, smell, touch what that is and see it in your mind's eye, you are training your brain. That's something that you want, because your brain doesn't even discern really the difference between you visualizing it versus you actually doing it. And as soon as you train, when you train your brain to, this is something I want, it's your subconscious starts lining up the things that are going to lead to getting there and working on that problem. It's the supercomputer that I know for me, a really long time, I wasn't tapping into it. I wasn't listening to it. I was feeding it a bunch of junk. So I got out of it a bunch of junk. So for me, over the last 4 years, almost 5 now, is whenever I've really started flexing this muscle, because it's possible for everyone to visualize what they want. And it doesn't, for some people, they can be really literally visual. They can see it in their mind's eye. For other people, it's a feeling or a smell or a touch or taste that is what they can connect with. Maybe it is an emotion that they're actually aiming for. It's a matter of finding the right tool that's going to get you to that space where you're in that mindset, where you are feeling like you're already there. Some people call that the law of attraction. Some people call this the reticular activating system of the brain. There's so many different ways to language getting there. But the result still, I feel, is the same. I'm trying to remember who said the quote of, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. So it's a matter of us then figuring out what that is. So one of the movies out there that kind of started being more globally and generally aware of this idea of manifesting in your life by thinking and feeling in that perspective was the movie called The Secret, talking about the law of attraction, which to me is like the kindergarten version of that, maybe even second or third grade. It's a good place to start. It's a great place to start, because it's not just about visualizing it, it's about some of the next steps later. But we have to start with being able to feel like we're there. Not only just that we're there, but we deserve it. The belief that I'm worth getting it.
My opinions of, I never read The Secret. I have probably seen mentions, things like that. I'm not talking about the book per se. I understand that there is a idea very much like a simple idea there. What I think that manifests into this, the secret phenomena, let's call it like that, is something that I see in the jiu-jitsu as well, which is the professor not trusting, not believing into the student. The professor, he wants to simplify things. A new student comes in, he will show an armbar and he's gonna do the position, because it's about position. It's like chess. When you are in a certain position, you have access to try something. And then you go there and he teaches you the armbar. What the professor I saw many times does is that they teach like a simple, they teach like, you get here, you push there, you move that, and they see the person doing a job not so good, not such a good job, and they are like, oh, it's perfect, very good, congratulations, like do it 20 times. And they leave the person doing the position wrong for a year, something like that, because they think, oh, he's going to go to blue belt, he's going to go to purple belt, he's going to learn it, but he doesn't put it to the measure to calibrate. No, it's actually like this. And one thing that caught my attention is that there are some guys on the USA, the Mendes bros, and the Mendes, they have 7, 8, 10, 11-year-old kids that fight jiu-jitsu better than I do. And the younger the students, the more this effect appears. If it's kids, they just put them to play. But no, you can have a 10 and 11-year-old kid that really knows jiu-jitsu, really knows what they are doing, because the professor believed on them. The higher version of The Secret, I believe, is Think and Grow Rich. But then there is a lot of polemics about Napoleon Hill. There is going to be a movie about him and things like that. But resuming, summarizing what I want to say is this. The Secret, it might tap into some things that are actually useful. But for me, it's a way for somebody that understands something, probably Bob Proctor, to teach people how to use things, but he's teaching them like, I don't trust you will understand it, but do this and it will work. Do you understand what I meant, Michael? What I want?
I think I gather what you're trying to get at. It's like the introduction to something, which is very different than the whole meat of it. It's why you can't always trust reading the back of the book to then understand the book. To me, The Secret as a movie, I actually listened to it as the audiobook, and I've listened to it probably a dozen times, maybe more, because the people who speak on it actually speak at a level that I understood at the time. And for me, that was a great introduction to the ideas. I've also got a book called The Secret of the Ages, which is on my reading list for one of the next books I'm going to read by, I think, Charles Haanel, which is what a lot of the teachings are from. But it is actually taking a very high level concept for somebody who's at a very high vibration of what's possible and making it available to people who aren't there yet, but at least giving them a vision of where they can go once they've started to practice this and turned it into their own wisdom. And there's even there's Lisa Nichols, there's a whole bunch of other speakers in that space who talk about this idea of manifesting through visualization, which is a fantastic place to start. And that's where we're starting here too. We're starting there. So why is this something that is so important though? Why do we need to even start there is the question I have. Why is visualization important? We talked about something that you were able to manifest in your life and myself. And this isn't just for, like you said, getting to Bora, making $1 billion, starting a multinational company. It can also be for those small things that we're creating in our life. Maybe it's something that's going to take you a week, a month, 6 months to create. It's a place to start. It's even as I'm growing the business of Elevate Your Best, I need to know where I want to go. I need to visualize what that's going to look like. And I'm still struggling with making that more concrete. Or as one of my friends like to say, concretize it to actually make it more solid. It's work in progress. It's a matter of getting there. But I can also tell you where I was 5 years ago before I was actually willing to do this work. Did you have?
I think that it's like, I believe that it's like a puzzle. It's puzzle when you get a picture and you fragment it and you put it together. It's a puzzle. It's a sort of puzzle. Yeah, it's like a puzzle. And you start to put some pieces here. You understand, oh, there is a stone here, and you put that cluster together, and then you figure another cluster out and another cluster, and you start to get to see the whole picture. The more pieces you figure out where to put, the easier for you to get the whole picture together.
I really like that analogy because of one way, at least, that I learned how to put a puzzle together. is you put all the pieces out, you get them all face up so you know what you're working with. And most people I've seen, and I've seen it done both ways, but most people I've seen grab all the edge pieces and they put the edge pieces together first, the boundaries of what you're working in. How big is it going to be? And what are the pieces that I know I can fit together right now? And then you fill
That's
in the rest.
metagaming, Michael. That's metagaming. They know there is an edge. Yeah.
It's a place to start so you know what the boundaries of that you're working within. That's
But
what we're
what
talking about for envisioning, what the outside boundaries are that you're going to play in. And then you apply the pieces and put the rest of it together.
what I would do there, I would search for something recognizable to put a few pieces together there. Like it's the same thing,
Mhm.
but the most recognizable thing, the most obvious is the edges. I don't know. Do you know metagaming?
No,
Like, oh, you don't know what metagaming is?
no, I haven't heard that.
Oh, metagaming is when you know that you're playing a game. So I know that I'm making a puzzle and I know it has edges. So it's a cheat. Like you are using information from outside the game to influence the game. Like in Dungeons and Dragons, it would be more obvious because you would know, oh, that is that creature. I know it's immune to fire and vulnerable to cold. That is more obvious metagaming. You are influencing using things outside of the game to influence the game. But yeah, it's useful.
Right. So I see two different things there. We've got an analogy we can use to actually help connect people with the idea, which the idea of putting the borders of the puzzle together. What you're talking about is using outside information that you know that your character doesn't know.
Yeah, it's I know that I can influence my subconscious mind by giving it suggestions and affirmations. So it's a metagame. It's not, but it is. I don't know if you get me there, but yeah.
It does. And here's the beautiful thing is that visualization and affirmations is training your brain to visualize what you want. That's what we're talking about. It is training the 90% or more of our brain to work on the problems we needed to work it on rather than being distracted by some of the other things that we get distracted on during the middle of our day. Is these
Mhm.
things are important to me. Let's work on that. And you do that while you're sleeping, you do that while you're daydreaming, you do that while you're working on other things. The rest of your subconscious is off processing something else. So if we can feed it what we wanted to work on, that's the power of visualization.
That's interesting. And who are those people, Michael? Now we know we understand that it is important. I this last part that you touch on, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but putting your work to your mind to work on something, setting a purpose, visualizing and allowing this part of your brain to work not random, but with purpose, because that's what we are talking about. It's your this is a resource, energy that we all are using, but when we have a proper understanding of how our minds communicates, how we communicate with our minds, that our mind, our subconscious mind, this super machine is something that we need to communicate with, give ideas, give commands, set it to work. Otherwise, it will be reacting to whatever it receives. So understanding this is very important. But who is the person that actually is having a challenge with this? Because the people that grew up in a culture scape or a family that had a nice practice of visualization, this is natural to them. But who are the other people that, what are the challenges that they are facing in their lives that keeps them from using those superpowers that we are talking about?
Partly, I know this is where I was a little over 5 years ago, and that I was wandering around in my life and feeling overwhelmed by all the things that are possible to do and not really accomplishing much. So I really felt like I was going around in circles and not getting anywhere. At the time, I was in a relationship that wasn't fulfilling for either of us. I was actually instead turning into a very angry person, blowing up all the time, not happy with anything that was going on and feeling unfulfilled. Like the things that I was doing weren't getting me anywhere. And then I realized that this is of my own making. I'm creating this by not actually having an idea of where I want to go. It really what always comes up in my head around this is an Alice in Wonderland segment in the Disney film of Alice coming up to the Cheshire Cat and saying, "Which way should I go?" And he asks her, "Where are you trying to get to?" And she says, "It doesn't matter." It's like, "Then it
She
doesn't matter
doesn't
which way you
know.
go." And it ends up being this space where I turned myself into a victim of that. The world was happening to me because I didn't set the sail, as we've talked about a couple of times. I didn't set the direction of where I wanted to go.
Mhm.
And I wasn't finishing things. So I started a whole bunch of things. In fact, even some of those projects are still open because I never got back to finishing them, probably because they were not in alignment with where I wanted to go. So in some ways, that idea of shifting this is also where my coaching business came from. I started on this path. I may only be a step or two ahead of some others on this path, but I'd love to teach them how I got there. I love to actually see people who are moving confidently through their life and happy with the steps that they're taking because they're heading in a direction of where they want to go.
Mhm.
If I want to end up in California and instead I go to Lebanon, how am I going to get to California? They're in opposite directions. Because of a whim that takes me to Lebanon, if my true goal is to get to a particular place, then I should be looking at stacking all the things behind it that's going to get me there. And that's what I was not doing. Instead, I was just reacting to what was coming up.
And another thing, Michael, that I realized personally in my life, that situations where I need to use this power of visualization, when it's necessary, when does it make a difference? It's when there are too many options. If I have too many options, you feel paralyzed. Where do you go? You are in a crossroads. And it's like that poem that says, like, the road less traveled by. That the guy says, "Oh, I got to a road, I saw one, I saw another. Which one to go? I decided to go to the less traveled by, even though no, and I left the other road for another day, even though knowing that paths, ways leading to ways, and I will probably not be back there to see the road where it leads ever again." The moment of decisions are important. I have experienced one day, for example, there were a few moments in my life, like where I used this power of visualization. The first time that I decided to actually get to work and make money, it was a moment like that. Something happened and I got to my room, I sat down, I put a plan, I said, calculated what was the service that I could offer. Who do I know that would be interested in that service? How much should I charge? How many clients can I expect to get? I made these projections and I hit it like 20% more. And then in another moment of my life, I remember that I had a few business options. And what we did is that we put them into a mind map. There were 5 options. And this was very interesting because just putting the options there and registering what we knew about those possible ventures, what were the positive points, what were the negative points. It was clear to us what was the options that we could visualize further and that were more sound for us to actually have a chance of success. So we could choose those are the 2 options that we are going to focus. I think that for people that are paralyzed in life without knowing where to go, overwhelmed and feeling that there is too much going on, and they don't actually understand where they are taking their lives or how they can redirect their lives to a better position, visualization is the tool to use.
And what I heard you say in that kind of was the first step of, let's write all the options down. Let's actually put them on paper. And let's then flesh them out a little bit more. Let's figure out what is good and bad about that. And I know for me, I can get stuck up here in my head and I can just be thinking and going over it and things. But as soon as you start recording them, writing it down makes them tangible and makes them more something you can hold in your hand and allows it to get out of your head. And then as you lay it out, you can actually then apply logic and reasoning to those pieces. And I can think that something is an amazing idea in my head because I haven't fleshed out all the ideas. There was a similar thing, and I think it was Jim Quick talked about, that was the 6 hats, the red hat, blue hat, green hat, red hat, and the looking at that potential outcome by the 6 different perspectives of what would the pessimist say? What would the optimist say? What is the tangible benefits? Where's the money involved in this? Who's the judge on that is another way to, once you've written it down, really seeing it from multiple different perspectives rather than this is the shiny object right now. Let's go do that. That sounds like a great idea.
Mhm.
It's really reacting to your life, living at the whim of the wind, which sometimes has its place. But at least for me, whenever I was only at the whim of the things that were around me is when I got myself in trouble. That's whenever I got blown into the reefs and destroyed my boat rather than actually setting sail to where I wanted to go.
And you spoke about writing it on paper. Writing it on paper, it's so important because every time you write it on paper, let's say it like that. If you can't trust in your memory, first that our memory is it fails us very much. But if you trust in your memory, every time you go back to an idea, to a project, you would need to rebuild that in your mind, have this effort. This alone is a lot of energy that is being wasted because you already done this job. And when you have a clear plan, like even if you have a paper where you scratch something, make some sketches, but then you communicate it clearly, like you put into some sort of container, like a notebook or something, or on Notion online, summarized version, like what is important, you architecture the information, things like that, make it clear for what is that idea that you are communicating, even to yourself. This makes a lot difference because every time you go back to this project now, first, your mind already has that idea of structure. And second, you work on top of what you did. You build on it. Every time you go back, instead of reviewing it and just having this conversation with your mind, you see much more productive because you will build on it every time, build on it. Every time you revisit the conversation, you add something, add value to it.
Absolutely. It's definitely good to get the structure that works for you around this too. There's note-taking skills that they don't necessarily teach in school. So take the notes down, yes, but then use something. You talked about a couple of different tools. So one was the mind map, which is a skill in and of itself of putting in a concept and then actually connecting it to all the other possible concepts that are related to it. The pros, the cons, the upside, the downside, the investment, the return, all those other components. I think that's a great tool that we should also discuss a little bit later on how we can actually clarify this vision for our life. Because as you said, as we put down the basics, we can then flesh out of it and then expand on that. I think that's an amazing idea. And I think that each of these other concepts that we'll be talking about is just other ways to expand on that skill, to build on top of getting it on paper. So we can think, it's the idea of, I've heard people say, I'm going to think out loud right now. It's a way to think out loud on paper, to think out loud in Notion, on Evernote, or whatever tool you're using to get this out of your brain and onto paper so that your brain can be then allowed to go to what's next or the other perspective or shift from a different level that you need to look at it as.
And my suggestion for people that would think on paper, try to see the information in some sort of symbolic way. For example, if I'm going to create a program for business, like I was talking to Michael earlier, I might create a program for business optimization and scaling. What I'm going to do is that I need to figure out the clusters of knowledge. If I'm going to talk about business, what is important? What is essential to a business? Like, oh, I know that a business has an audience, it has an offer, it has content. I know that it needs to have marketing efforts. I know it needs to have like customer care and acquisition. So identify all those topics related to business and I start to group them. What is inside of what? Who gets together in a group like, oh, marketing is the same type of acquisition, customer care. Oh, research. Where does research go? Research and development is important. Research goes inside marketing. So I need to locate those things, and locating those things and understanding those hierarchy of the knowledge that you are building, this makes it so much better for your mind to actually grasp that and put those things into action.
So it is the hierarchy, but it's also the interconnectivity. Because like you mentioned, research and development, maybe in marketing, but there's also research and development in engineering. So it's actually required on both. So you need that as its own separate bubble, but it's directly related and can provide content, can provide information, can provide insight to both of those bubbles. So I love that idea of actually, it is the idea of fleshing out the idea, getting to a point where you can really engage in that. So I guess, so you mentioned the mind map, which once again, a fantastic tool to visualize in a pictographic way. So you can see the interconnectivity and you can really map it out. There's a couple of other tools that I want to go over as well. I mentioned briefly about the 6 hats, and that's a way of vetting an idea. The idea of actually helping to define really the objective hat. What are the facts and the logic? What is the logical way of accomplishing something? That's the white hat. The black hat is more the intuitive hat. So focusing on your emotion and your instinct. What does your gut say about that? What do you feel viscerally whenever you think about that idea or taking one decision or another? I'm sorry, that's the red hat. Is the emotions and the instincts, so you can connect the color red with your heart, your emotions. The black hat is the cautious hat, or I called it the pessimist a little bit earlier. And it's what could go wrong? What would be the downside if we did this? Or the yellow hat is the optimistic hat. What's the sunshine side of this? What's the positive outcome? Who's the optimist in the room? The green hat is the creative hat. It's how you create something out of this. Where can there be abundance out of this? Where is there possible criticism? So how do you make an artistic perspective from this? How can you actually be creative around it? And then the blue hat is more for organization, management, control, judgment, putting the blue hat in the space of, once we have these other 5, weighs and measures the rest of it, figures out of those details, that research, how do we then make a decision on the path that we want to go, on the decision that we want to make? This is a little bit more complicated than, let's see, I've got these 2 decisions, let's flip a coin and figure out what I want to do. It's really living that intentional life, because you're now looking at it from the good, the bad, the ugly, if necessary, to see if that's where you want to go. And if you take this choice now, where's that going to leave you 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now?
This hat idea is interesting because we tend to adopt roles for ourselves. Like I am I believe we spoke this on the agreements, the 4 agreements. Like I am timid, or I'm this and that, the agreements that we make with ourselves. But we actually have a lot more potential than we realize. We can do much more, much more. Like we would surprise ourselves, no matter how far we go. But the thing is, with this idea of the hats, just the practice of sitting down, being mindful, and asking yourself, what would be like, what is the objective of this? Or what does it seem like my intuition is telling me? How do I feel about it? And remember, okay, I need to be cautious. As just setting the purpose of thinking in, again, doing that on paper, it's very good. I know we talk about visualization, it's a vision, but when you write, you register. There is something that works there. But you put down there your thoughts, your considerations, and what are, if I'm being very optimistic, what can happen? Because it's that law that says that by observing something, Michael, we change it. Imagine we have this powerful tool. We don't understand completely how it works. We know it works, but we have this powerful tool. And just by setting our attention into something, it changes our possibilities to leave that, because there are things working down there that we don't understand, that if I really desire, for example, to make a travel through Latin America, Asia, or Europe, and I really desire, and everything that I see related to that, I get that emotion, my subconscious mind will start to work and observe things and opportunities. And in ways that I don't understand, my reality will change. Because perhaps if I didn't have that deep desire, I wouldn't notice opportunities that appear. It's as simple as that. An ad might call more my attention because I'm engaged in certain things, because I'm focusing on that, because my attention is there, and our focus is very important.
Absolutely. So each of the tools that I want to dig in today is a way to bring a different focus. And in some ways, it's the foundational work that can ensure that as you're looking to create that part of your life, it can go more fluidly. So it's an active and recorded way to visualize where you want to go. So I'm just going to hit the highlights of some of these because each of these requires a fair amount of training to use. But at least want to say, at least for me, where they've been the most effective. So you mentioned mind maps. I've done that a little bit, not as much. But the ones that have really helped me are CPR, the 4DX, OKRs, and Lifebook. That's a whole bunch of acronyms, and I'm going to go a little bit into each of those. So just so we can actually maintain what each of those are. So the CPR, or sometimes called a CPR, is context, purpose, results, and either an action plan or an agenda. As an example, for me, I use that quite a bit on a men's team. So for a team in that organization to run the meeting, you would write up a CPR with an agenda for every single meeting. And you always, in that construct, start with the results. What are you looking to create? 3, 4, 5 things that you want to do, that you want to create by whatever this event is, whatever this process is that you're going to go to. If it's a meeting with your boss, if it is a team meeting with your team, if it is a road trip that you're going to go on, a conference you're going to go to, what are the results you want to create? Once you have those refined, figure out the purpose. Why do you want to create all of those? And the purpose is after, most of the time, the results, because you can then discern by looking at the results what the purpose of those that they will create. And the last part of that first segment is what is the context you're going to hold that's going to keep you on track to create those results. Sometimes it's a battle cry, sometimes it's a phrase that triggers you to come back to why you're doing this, your purpose, and to create the results that you want. This is the foundation by which you then create a plan that you're going to use in order to create those results. But you have to know what those results are first. And most of the time, those results do come from already doing some of the legwork, doing the research on what are you looking to create in that sales event, in that conversation with your partner, in that when you're actually going to be your workout plan. What are the results you're looking to do? And these most of the time need to be tangible or intangible results that you're looking to create. So
can we do some sort of template, Michael, for people on this CPR?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's do some templates. And by the way, I forgot, Michael, but you guys should subscribe down below in our channel. We will see how we can share these tools better with you, create some templates. I know we have some templates already, Michael, for people on the daily journal and on the 3MIQ. And yeah, we'll probably put the related templates on the link below. Remember to go there. And if you wish to ask for some specific tool, some specific template that you are, we'll see if we can create some related to this for you. But yeah, subscribe, hit down below.
So thank you for joining us along this journey as we've come this far. If you've liked what we've shared with you, please click subscribe down below and leave us a comment if there's something in particular that we missed or how you've actually used some of these technologies to make your life better.
Yeah, that's great. But let's not stop. Let's continue. We had CPR. We have 4DX. How is this 4DX, Michael?
So 4DX stands for the 4 disciplines of execution. So this can be used certainly from the perspective of a business situation, which is most often where it's actually played out, is the 4 disciplines of execution in that space. So the idea is that there's 4 phases of this that can help you execute things in your life. And it really has segments that you go through in order to build out a vision for what you're looking to accomplish. So the first discipline is called focus on the wildly important. So if this is actually for your health, if this is for your business, if it's for your love relationship, if it's for any part of your life, figure out the thing that is so wildly important that if you don't accomplish that, nothing else matters. As an example, if your wildly important goal is to be able to do a Spartan race, if that's what is wildly important for you, that's actually the most important thing that's going to set the bar for what your health is. That would be the wildly important goal, that you've completed a Spartan race. That is an end goal. That is what they generally call a lag goal, because it's not something that you can track until you've actually gotten there. So another way that they talk a lot about is the idea of losing weight, or maybe it is hitting a sales goal, having a certain number of customers. All of those things are lag goals. They're things that you do not actually have a way to directly impact.
This focusing on the wildly important things is very important. It's a key factor, because many people, they focus on their weaknesses. Like, I want to work on my weaknesses. I don't know how to do this. I'm a graphic designer. I do great visual production of things, communicate very greatly. But let's say I don't know programming. So I know how to do a beautiful interface, but if I insist on learning the programming, I will have to learn an entire new skill, entire new journey. And if I insist on doing that for everything, I'm gonna be always in a journey, never ready to set sail. And the thing that we need to, I learned this watching Undercover Billionaire. It is one of the great lessons that I watch into that show. It seems not so promising. You look like the production, the promotion, and you're like, must be goofy, but it's actually like the best business education I've ever seen. It's on Discovery Channel. But the thing is this, they work on their strengths. They really go on their strengths, and they get other people to cover their weaknesses. They get people that are strong where they are weak to cover them. They don't work with weaknesses. Their business don't have a weaknesses. If they have, they find someone to cover it, because everybody's focusing on what they do good. I know it's not the same exact thing, but it's whatever you do, focus on what is important. Focus on what's gonna do the major of the work. Like sometimes you have a big effort to put some event together, but that is a specific thing that you can direct like 20% of the energy, and you get 80% of the results of your event. So focus on the widely important things is a key factor. I like that, Michael.
This can work in the solo environment for yourself in your own wildly important goals. It's also really powerful when you do it on teams, when you pull people together to decide what that wildly important goal is, in order for that team to succeed at its mission, whatever that mission is. What is the wildly important goal that if that doesn't happen, nothing else matters? So you certainly focusing on your strengths is going to be important, but when you are in this construct of a team and you have that wildly important goal, is each person that's on that team brings a different value, a different strength to help accomplish that particular wildly important goal. And we'll get into kind of then what the next phases of this are when we get into that, because everyone having the idea of the lag measure, the wildly important goal, how are they then contributing to the lead measure? Which is why the second discipline is so important, which is act on the lead measures. Those things that you can have an impact on, that you feel is going to be the biggest leverage to create the lag goal, the lag measure. So as an example, for weight loss, the things you can control, the big levers you can do is how many calories you're eating and how much exercise are you doing. If it's for a sales goal, maybe those lead measures is how many phone calls you're making, how many invites you're giving out to your event, how much effort can you take in order to impact what that wildly important goal is. You can't directly impact the lag measure of closing a deal because you don't know what the customer is going to do as far as once you get that far in the sales process. Or if it's something for your love relationship, maybe the lag measure is that you have gone on a romantic weekend with your partner. You want it to be an enjoyable romantic weekend. That's the lag measure. What are the steps you can take in order to make sure that happens? Save up $100 every week to put aside in order to invest in that. Maybe it's the number of times you're going to talk to your partner about it. So that is how to act on your lead measures. The third, this is really important when it comes to teams, but also personally.
Mhm.
Those things we're going to actually record and report on is how are we ensuring that the lead measure is hit. So when those are the things we can take action on. And each person then needs to decide how they can contribute to those lead actions that you can take. The third step is actually how do we track it? So the third discipline is having a compelling scoreboard. So once you know where you're going, that wildly important goal, and you have the lead measure, the actions you can take in order to get there, if you're going to do this solo, is having something that's going to connect you with it personally, emotionally, that's going to drive you to it, or as the team coming together and deciding what a compelling scoreboard looks like. They found in the research that if you have people who are playing basketball and they're just out there playing basketball just because they play at a certain level, as soon as there's a scoreboard and people are keeping score, they step up their game. Literally, they step up their game because they're going to play in order to win. So
Awesome.
the last discipline for this is creating a cadence of accountability. This is a huge thing around my coaching practice as well, is yes, we're keeping score. Yes, we have a lead measure, but if we're not then accountable to the steps we're going to take in order to impact that lead measure, that's going to eventually have an impact on the lag measure, we won't see the growth that we're looking for. When you show up to the team and say, I realize that the rest of you gave 100%, you did your best in this, and I did it half-assed, I went 50% and didn't show up, there's this pit that I felt whenever I've been in that situation. Yes, I let my team down. So this accountability is really important. Not just that there's accountability, but there's a cadence of it. There's a regular check-in on where people are around helping deliver on the lead measure so we can then have that wildly important goal become a reality. Most of the time, these wildly important goals are tangible distances. We've actually moved from 5 clients to 10 clients in 6 months. So that's the tangible way of the thing that we're looking to create. Then when we get into the cadence of accountability, we are looking at not only am I checking in on what I did do last week, but also what I'm going to do this week. So as an example, if it is, I'm going to eat 2,000 calories or less every day and work out 3 days this week. We check in with, did you do this or not? If you are going to eat less than 2,000 calories for 3 days of the week, and that's what you committed to, did you do that or not? And then if the first time that you check in with this, that you don't actually accomplish that level of what you've committed to, it's a pass. And then you have to basically complete the things that you didn't do last week, this week, on top of anything you're going to do this coming week. And then continue delivering what you can and in figuring out what you're going to commit to for the next week to help the team accomplish what they're going to do. If it comes to a point where it's a regular missing of that, then it's a matter of checking with that person and see what's wrong is, and maybe it's an opportunity to inspect how the lead measure is going to impact that person, or how, if it is it actually impacting the lag measure. It's a matter of working within that, and that cadence of accountability is the kind of wrapper around all of this, making sure that it all works, that it's all relevant, that it's not something that we go for 3-4 weeks and forget about, that we are keeping this in front of people. Most of the time it's weekly, sometimes it can be twice a week, but it needs to be something that's a regular check-in. It's not something that's long and drawn out either. It's maybe you get 2 minutes to check in. Yes, I did. This is what I'm going to do. This is why I missed it. Move on to the next thing. It's not something that turns into a 2-hour-long meeting, because everybody dreads that as that one person drones on and on about why they didn't do it. It's, got it. You didn't do it. What are you going to do now? And it helps keep that rhythm. If that's in production at a facility that safety is their concern, that they have no injuries in the plant. What is the lead measures you're going to do that? Do safety inspections 5 times a week. Maybe that's how you keep injuries from happening. That's your lead measure. And 0 injuries on the job is your lag measure. Then what are you going to do that? If I'm the safety manager, I make sure that I do a certain number of safety inspections. If I'm somebody who's working on the line, I'm going to be then looking at how I can make sure that my space is as safe as possible and I stay focused, that I actually do a break every 2 hours so that I can actually then not get into the monotony of the job and lose a. Each person is going to deliver on the best way that they can in the construct of that team based on their strengths. So it's awesome that you brought that up, a little bit earlier, because it is delivering from your area of strengths that we can impact and act on the lead measures, so we then can focus on the wildly important.
So we have in the 4DX, focus on the widely important, act on lead measures, keep a compelling scoreboard, and create a cadence of accountability. I saw something interesting about this that says like the purpose of the first, the second, and the third disciplines is to create a winnable game for the team. This is very clever because when you have a game, people want to compete. When you have a scoreboard, people compete harder, and it's fun, and there is a lot of things. And I like this concept of creating a winnable game. And the more important, what really called my attention is that it is a winnable game, because many leaders, many team leaders, they might create unwinnable game. I work into a place where the game was unwinnable. You had a quota for sales. I wasn't a salesperson, but there was the salespeople, and you had a quota for sales. And if people hit the quota, go up. Oh, that guy sold 70K last month. That means people can sell 70K. Let's put the quota for 100K then. See if they can get there. So if they get there, they lose. So you got to make it a winnable game. That is very good. I like it, Michael. And he talks about the competing as well. Like when people sees a scoreboard, they see that they are making a difference to win. And when they see that they make a difference to win, they care much more and things like that.
Absolutely. And this is especially whenever you realize that me working on this lead measure actually has an impact on that wildly important goal. Absolutely, the engagement goes up, the morale gets higher, because then we know that we are working as a team towards the goal, not working against each other and competing amongst ourselves. Our idea is to get to the goal. Absolutely.
Oh, great.
So that was actually introduced for me once again in the construct of the men's team of the longer term goals. So the CPR is really good for me. The way that I've used them is for an event, a meeting, something that's going to be short term. Just because for me, the idea of holding a context for a week or for a month or a year is really difficult because it shifts so much during that time. Versus 4DX for me was much better for those 6-month goals, those 1-year goals. So you mentioned strategic planning before. So one of the other concepts that I really liked, I have not found a use in my life for it yet, is the object of OKRs, objectives and key results. It feels to me very similar to the 4 disciplines of execution. This is very much a strategic planning inside of organizations, but it also can be applied to you in your personal life as well. What is that objective you want to create? Visualize what you want to have in a period of time, if it's 3 months or 6 months. And then what are the key results that you need, the 3 things that need to happen for that objective to become real. And when you're working in a team, many times your manager's key results end up becoming one of your objectives. And in places like Intel or Google, those objective and key results actually go up and down the organization from the top to the bottom and from the bottom to the top, to make sure that everyone is actually focusing a majority of their time, not all of it, but a majority of it, on what the key results they're looking to create are. It's another way to figure out how you can accomplish. Picking that objective is the first place that we start, is where do we want to go? It is like Is set the sail. It is that focus on the wildly important from 40X. What is that objective that we want to look to create in our life?
Mhm.
I'm not going to go
Yeah.
too much into it because I don't have much personal experience there. I just wanted to make sure that we highlight that there are plenty of ways to accomplish the different perspectives to get there.
You know what I think about OKRs? People usually wait for those ready to use answers that will transform their lives and magically make things happen. And they get like tools like this OKR, and they expect this massive result or something like that. I don't know. What I see when I see a tool like this, it's obvious, it's good sense. It's, oh, of course I need to have a direction. Of course I need to have some measures. Of course they don't, if they are too many, I'm going to be like, oh, confused. So it's good if they are like a few, if I focus on the widely important. And like, it is important for me to keep accountable with myself, like measuring it and act upon what I am measuring. Because one of the aspects of the accountability in the 40X that I noticed and forgot to mention, Michael, by the way, and that is, this is very important in strategic planning. The plan that you create in the beginning, you don't need to follow it blindly. Oh, but that was what was decided. We need to act on it. We decided that. You don't need to, the biggest mistake people might do in life, it's wait to have all the answers in the planning meeting. Like, you don't need to have, remember the puzzle. You need to have a good idea of a key points. If you find some key points, oh, I find the horse. Oh, there is a horse in the picture. You get the whole horse. And then you get the cart, and then you get like the barn and the house. And if you get enough points, you will get through the space between the grass, between the horse and the house. You will figure it out, but you need to get the horse and you need to get the house first. But if you haven't figured out the grass between the horse and the house in the planning meeting, that's why you need to accept flexibility. You need to be accountable, you need to follow up on the results, and you need to be able to exchange your plan, to make modifications to your plan, make adjustments, because those adjustments, they'll be what makes you successful. It's not the initial plan that many times makes an effort successful. It's the adjustments that it does, because there are risks, there are unpredictability, there are things that you didn't know. So I like that aspect of it. And the OKRs, they remember me something that should be in our culture, like strategic planning, all this that we are speaking, visualization for you to use it. But it's not that it's gonna be a magical tool, like a divine rod that you use and produces miracles in your life. It is just know that you need to have an objective, know that you need to have establish some measures, know that you need to follow up on them and adjust your actions according to what you are measuring, because those are the important things.
Absolutely. And to expand on that a little bit, each of these tools is just like a hammer. The hammer by itself is not inherently a good or bad tool. It's a matter of how you use it. And the more you use it, the better you get at it. I can actually
That's
use that
true.
tool in this particular situation, but for me to put in a screw, a hammer doesn't work. For me to
Yeah.
cut a board, a hammer doesn't work. So it's a matter of using the right tool at the right time. It's one reason why I want to talk about all these at once, because each of these are fantastic tools for where they are best used. And it's a matter of finding the best place for you to use them. And each of these is more of an introduction. I would really suggest that if one of these resonates with you, there's lots of information online to tell you how to use them. So 4DX is a Franklin Covey product. These context, purpose, and results, or CPRs, I've seen a couple of different places for strategic planning or the military. I know Mentor Discover Inspire does a training on them like 2 or 3 times a
Mm.
year. So there's lots of places to learn about each of these. OKRs,
Let's
same thing.
let's put them on the description. If there's all free content on the internet, or even if it's like some paid content, we see if there is an offer. I believe the 40X has some course or something. But we mentioned the main website or the YouTube channel, and for people to find out more, because those are very important, very nice tools that you can use.
So if any of these tools resonated with you, look in the card below. We'll have some links to ways to find out more resources for them. So the last piece that I really want to talk about is, for me, one of the best tools for longer term visioning. So this is actually the Lifebook process. It is, for me, something that I'm becoming a certified leader in. By the time you're watching this, I may already be a certified leader in this. But it's a framework, an empty framework at that, for you to help discern what you want, why you want it, and the steps you're going to take to get there, and what beliefs do you have that ensure that you will accomplish it. This has been really dear to my heart because I've been able to leverage it. We talked about it a little bit earlier. In the Lifebook process is where I wanted to flesh out the social category of my life, because I was doing things here and there, but they weren't connecting. So that's where I figured out this is one step I can take, one of the strategies I can use in order to build out my social life so I could be in connection with more people. And it did start off a little bit slow for me because I wasn't quite ready yet to define what my vision was for certain categories of my life. We talked about each of these as a different tool, CPRs and 4DX and OKRs, and each of these can actually, in some cases, be used as a strategy inside of the Lifebook process, because it is an empty system for you to put your tools in. It is part of the strategy, potentially, to create a part of your life. But one of the biggest parts that I really like about the Lifebook process is that it isn't about being a really great business person. It's not about being a really in health person. It's about being both. It's about being what they call 12 category smart. Being able to look at what you want in the various categories of your life, so you're not in a space where you're making a lot of money, but you don't have anybody to share it with. You're not in a space where you have your favorite job, but whenever you get home at the end of the day, you are completely wiped out because you don't have anything else to fill your cup. So it's been a way for me to expand on discovering really what I want in my life, to then know what I'm taking steps towards, and really finding out the overlap of some of those things. And that overlap is different for different people. For some people, their emotional life is really attached to their spiritual life. And for some, their emotional life is really attached to their intellectual life. Each of them has a different impact, and it's different for different people. For some, their spiritual life is their career. And for some, they're completely separate. They keep their professional life separate from what they're doing spiritually. And there is no rules of the road for this. It is that internal self-discovery, that discerning, that deciding, that creating of what you want your life to be a few years from now.
I think that we should do an episode talking about the Lifebook process, where we will talk about the 5 areas of the human nature, which is from Dr. He talks about that in a book, I believe, something related to be happy. And because those are in the Lifebook process as well, like that idea of many things being related, many things working the same way. But the Lifebook process considers 12 areas. It has these 5 human areas of the human nature, and it has 7 areas that I identify. I ask myself, what's the difference? What's different from those 5 that this doctor think it's important, and those 7 that he doesn't cares to mention? It's because those other 7 are related to human society. So you have 5 areas of the human being, well-being, and he works with the human nature, the well-being of you as a creature, an animal, a living being. And Lifebook process relates things more to the 12 areas of us as this human manifestation that lives in society, beyond what we are as a living being, but in our community. How do we behave, and how is our vision in relation to all that? I think that next episode we can talk about this, Michael. if you
Absolutely.
wish to.
Absolutely. I think
Mhm.
we can certainly go into some details of that. And some of this is, there's this level that I want to make sure that people get is this is a tool, just like the other four we talked about, and it can apply in the right places for the right people. So for me, it has had a transformational effect to the point that my life book is actually with me all the time, because it is for me the operating manual for my life, because I've figured out what I want and why I want it. What are the steps that I need to take in order to get there? So
Mhm.
that's the importance of it for me. And for those people who actually want to learn how to do that process, it is a process. It's not a one and done. It's not read an article and be ready to go. There is this unfolding that happens. And this idea of having the owner's manual for your life, for me, has made a huge difference. We've also talked a lot about accountability and how important that is. So as a life book leader, that's part of where I can help people through the process of that. Help people discover what those pieces are that are important to them. And this isn't about me as a leader, a life book leader, teaching people. It's not about making them wrong. It's not about telling them what to think either. This is about discovering what's right for you, because a belief that's important for me may not resonate at all with you. There's a couple of things even that Bruno and I actually disagree on. And that's awesome that we disagree, because my beliefs are based on my experience and what I've done. And Bruno's are based on his experience and what he believes. And all of them are awesome if they resonate with you.
Yeah, in some situations, something that might be beneficial to you might be detrimental to me. It might happen. We have a friend in India, and I'm pretty sure that there are some cultural differences that for me, I believe and I like, that for me, I believe and I like and I enjoy, and they are part of my life. And perhaps they are so alien to her that doing those things that might be seen as common here in our culture might be like very detrimental to someone's image there, the clash of culture. This doesn't mean that there is only a way. There is not only a way. Of course, there are things where we disagree for different reasons, and they serve us differently, and we might be mistaken. But usually, what I want to say is that there are things that they are true, like laws of the universe. They work in a certain way, but usually there is plenty of room to diverge.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've heard a couple of people say is that the human mind is a meaning making machine. I believe it was actually Devin Bailey who mentioned that. And the meaning you give to a phrase is going to be sometimes different than the meaning that I give to a phrase. Once again, that's
That's
okay.
true.
If I talk about the word strategy, for some people, that's going to make them clench up and go, oh, we're going to talk about that. And for other people, they get in all in it and they want to do it because it's so exciting for them. And that's, once again, the flexibility of this framework that's important to me,
Mhm.
because it's, as a leader, it's not about me applying my meaning of it. It's a matter of me helping you figure out your meaning for it, so that it is something
Mhm.
that resonates with you. So like we talked a little bit earlier, that it's pulling you towards the vision for your life. It's not something that at this point I need to struggle to get myself out of my own way in order to create. It's more that I wake up excited that I want to create this in my life. That's the goal, is having a vision for your life, that envisioning process, that once you get through the end of this process, your product, the tangible thing you can hold in your hand, is this vision for what you want in your life. It's this component, this idea, this concept of something that I can see in my head, I can feel in my heart, I can taste the food I'm eating, I can actually smell the garden I'm going to be walking through, or the woods I'm going to be in, that I can actually get myself in that space. Because just like we started off this conversation, when we can formulate that in our mind, is when we can actually train our subconscious to start finding the ways for us to accomplish it. So my question to you as our listener is, how beautiful would that be to have this North Star, this guiding light, this vision of where you want to go, so that you can then start creating it?
That is very interesting to a vision really draws a person. A vision really drives a person. If you have a vision, you get more driven. because there is a lot of emotion associated to that, and those emotions are energy. Something like that happens and gives you this fuel to move forward. And if you have a good vision, if you have a good plan, if you have a good strategy put out, if you took the time to visualize it and you didn't just daydream, you actually put it on paper and you plan. Because if you put on paper, it's planning. You get better. You will get better with it on time. If you don't know how to plan, like when I first started thinking on paper, I was like, okay, what do I do? What do I register? What is important? And in the beginning were texts. I would write things, but then you start to understand what is important, how to schematize things, like how to, I don't think schematize is a word, but with time you learn what is important, how to make relations to things, how to register only what is a key information, things like that, and you get better. And then your vision will be clearer. You'll be able to communicate that to other people. And when you communicate that, you gain the possibility to recruit people to your vision. And that is very good.
Absolutely. And that idea of designing what this looks like, and I'm going to come back to it, is there's lots of tools for visualization. There's lots of teachers for visualization out there that can help get you there, who can actually get you to the mindset that's going to help lead you to the next phase of your life. And my question is, how are you going to elevate that next level of your life? Are you stepping into that vision of your life because you're flowing towards it? I know Bruno used the word driven, has a slightly different connotation for me. Is driven is me pushing against something. It's, as one of the coaches I've worked with called, that push energy, which is different than flow energy. Is whenever you are already at that vibration of that thing that you're trying to accomplish, that person you're trying to connect with, and things go that way. That it's not necessarily that I'm not willing to run. It's that I find enjoyment in running, if that's what it is that actually is going to get me into flow, versus hating every minute of doing it. Being driven is, I hate what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it anyways. Very different than, I'm so excited to create what's on the other side that I'm willing to take this step in order to get there. It's a mindset shift. And that is what creating this vision for the next week, the next month, the next year, whatever that is that you're looking to create, find a tool that works for you. Find a tool that resonates with you, that can get you into that mindset of, this is so exciting, this is so important, this lights me up so much that I can't wait to take the next step towards it.
Also, Michael, flowing is very interesting concept. Like, just to take your mind and think a little bit about flowing. What is the flow? There is a famous talk of Bruce Lee, right? Be the teacup. It's be like water, my friend. Water can flow, water can clash. Like, he says some things there. And he says, if you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. If you put water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Be water. And flowing is effortless. Flowing just happens. Yeah, that is a lot to do, to talk about flowing. Like, we should create an episode.
We will talk about flow in one of our future episodes, because I think that there's a whole lot of information out there. There's whole lot of misinformation. There's a whole lot of research going on around what it's like to be in flow. If that's the runner's high, if that's actually in the artist, headspace, whatever that is different for different people. And I very much think that we should talk about flow, and I plan on talking about flow in one of our future conversations here, because it is so important to find what sets the stage. What's the recipe for you to get into flow? Because each person is different. For me, I do that many times whenever I'm programming, whenever I'm coding. I can just load in and actually be tunnel vision, and that just flows and it goes and I get there. For other people, it's painting. For others, it's running. Each person has their own space that actually can get them to that state of flow. But if you look at some of the research out there, there are some prerequisites that at least 3 of them need to be there for it to actually make it possible.
Okay. So I think that is it for today, Michael. There was a good conversation about the tools of visualization. Like we talked about different tools, but as we saw, they are very similar. They have some very intrinsic aspect to them, like registering idea, allowing us to come back and build upon what's already built, focusing on what is important, being aware of that, like not trying to solve everything, having priorities, acting on those priorities, knowing what is important to track on those things that we wish to accomplish. What are the actual measures that we should be looking on? And be accountable, be committed with those actions, be accountable with those measures, and be flexible to adjust the plan according to how we are going. If we are doing well, if we are not doing well, readjust, review, and do our best to make whatever it is that we visualize into reality, which is a superpower, a very good superpower that we have. We can create reality, guys. That's what people talks about mind bending. Another subject that we can tackle on the future. Michael, it was a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you, Bruno, for actually having this conversation with me. And all of these tools, like Bruno said, are very similar. They all have a use. There's a time and place for them. And each one helps us flesh out what we want, what we look to create by helping us envision what that looks like, to set what it is our goal is. And then what then is the next step in order to get there. Each of them has part of that as part of the flow. Seeing it here, breaking it down to smaller pieces, take one bite of that elephant at a time instead of trying to eat the whole thing at once. But it needs to start with knowing where we're going, why we want to get there, what it's going to create in our life, and how we want to feel when we get there.
And it's something that I noticed, Michael, in what you just say for us to actually wrap up. If you, for the X, for example, it might be a good tool for you to lead a team. The strategic planning, it might be a good tool of visualization for you to organize a marketing campaign and things like that. Like a Kanban board is a good visualization tool for you to visualize a workflow. The Lifebook process is the process, the visualization tool that allows you to plan your life purpose. It has a purpose. It's not an ordinary visualization tool. It has a purpose. It's not just, we are talking that those tools are similar. They have similarities. They work on the same concepts, but each one of them is designed to solve a specific challenge, a specific problem. Like, for example, the Lifebook premium process. It is the process designed to help you figure it out and create your life vision, to plan for your life. So just to finish this, it felt like it needed some closing. So be aware of what is your purpose, what you actually is intending to do, and use the proper tools in order to achieve that.
Perfect. So as we're wrapping up here, it's time to start thinking about what your life purpose is. As Bruno mentioned, finding the right tool that's going to help you do that. So we challenge you to find a tool that gets you there, so you can actually feel fulfilled in your life, so you can feel like you're accomplishing something as you're taking steps toward the purpose for your life. For me, what helped me get there was the Lifebook process. I look forward to talking to you about that or any of these other possible tools. I'd love to hear how you've used some of these. How have you used OKRs or the 40X or CPRs to better your life? Leave your comments down below where they've actually really worked for you. Or if there's another system that's worked for you, tell us about it. Tell us what you've created by using that process. Because I love to learn more information. Both of us are here to learn how to better ourselves and to elevate our best. So please subscribe down below if you love this. Give us a thumbs up if you loved it. Leave us comments if you loved it. By the way, I hope you love this. And we look forward to talking to you next week. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye, guys. Don't forget to subscribe.
And this is Michael Danclough of Elevate Your Best.
And this is Bruno Martins from the Cyber Journey.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Michael.